Daniel Cross stood frozen in the middle of his ranch, staring at the huge red and white sign drilled into the post. My blood was boiling as I read it over and over again. HOA, private property. Trespassers will be prosecuted. The sign was smack in the middle of my 2,000-acre ranch. Behind it, a bulldozer was pushing a line of wooden posts into the ground, marking off plots of land. Men in bright orange vests were walking around like they owned the place. I rushed toward them, yelling, "What the hell are you doing on my land?" One of them, holding a clipboard, didn't even look up. "This parcel is now under HOA jurisdiction, sir. Please leave the area unless you're authorized." My heart stopped. HOA jurisdiction? This land doesn't even belong to an HOA. I demanded answers, but they just kept working, acting like I wasn't even there. That's when it hit me, something big was happening here. Something illegal. And I was stuck right in the middle of it. But what I didn't know yet was how deep it ran, or how far they would go. Let me take you back to where this all started. My name's Daniel Cross. I've been a rancher in Central Texas for 23 years, running cattle, growing corn, working the land my grandfather left me. My ranch, Coyote Hills, was passed down from my granddad to my dad, and now it's mine. The name came from the wild coyotes that still howl at the moon out here. I've always kept to myself, away from the city life, and focused on my work. Folks knew me as the quiet guy who'd show up once a month at the farmer's market with the freshest produce and the sweetest peaches you could taste. Life was simple. I worked hard, paid my taxes, and helped out my neighbors when I could. That's just how I was raised. A few years ago, the land to the south of my property started getting developed. A company came in and built a fancy gated community called Silver Glen Estates. The kind with tennis courts, shiny mailboxes, and rules for everything. They even had an HOA. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured they'd stick to their side and leave us country folk alone. That was, until the letters started coming. The first one was polite enough. It said, "Dear Mr. Cross, as a nearby landowner, we invite you to consider joining the Silver Glen Homeowners Association. Benefits include security patrols, community trash collection, and property value growth." I tossed it in the fire. My land wasn't part of their development. I didn't need their benefits. I had a generator, my own well, my own security cameras, and a lot more peace and quiet than they did. But then the next letter came. It wasn't so friendly. Notice of boundary adjustment. Please be advised that recent annexation by Silver Glen HOA includes portions of your land. Please see attached for updated property zoning annexation. Annexation? That had to be a mistake. No one could just take land like that. I drove down to the county recorder's office to figure out what was going on. I met with a clerk named Janet T. Sweet, older lady with reading glasses that always slid down her nose. She pulled up the plat map and zoning records, frowning as she studied them. "Well, that's odd," she said. "According to this, Silver Glen submitted an annexation map 2 months ago. Looks like the county approved it." I leaned forward. "Approved what exactly?" She tapped her screen. "They filed that your land was unclaimed and the county stamped it as unclaimed." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've got tax records, deeds, photos from 3 generations working that land. It's my ranch. She nodded slowly, looking worried. "It's not right, but it's legal, at least on paper." That night, I barely slept. I sat on the porch with a flashlight and my family's deed in hand, flipping through it over and over again. My great-granddad had registered this land in 1911. There were photos of him breaking ground with a plow and 2 mules. And now, the county just decided it was unclaimed? The next morning, I called a lawyer named Russell Kane. He was a sharp young guy who had a reputation for going toe-to-toe with City Hall. After reviewing everything, he said, "This stinks of land theft. And I'm guessing money changed hands somewhere. But lawsuits take time and money." While I was filing paperwork and fighting in court, HOA was already acting like they owned the place. They put up fences, hired private security, and even tore through a creek bed I'd carefully protected for wildlife. They claimed it was for aesthetic purposes to match their new landscaping plan. My cows had nowhere to drink. But the moment that pushed me over the edge came one morning when I was checking the fence line near the southern border. That's when I saw a black SUV parked on my dirt road. Out stepped a short man in a suit, holding a tablet. "You Daniel Cross?" he asked, not even looking at me. "I am," I said, wondering what the hell he wanted. He tapped something on his screen and said, "You're trespassing. You need to vacate this property within 7 days or face legal consequences from Silver Glen Estates." I laughed. "You're trespassing on my ranch. I don't know your HOA a damn thing. This isn't even your jurisdiction." He looked up, annoyed. "That's not what the county says." That night, I got the letter. Certified mail. Inside, an official notice of possession and control filed by Silver Glen HOA, claiming 2,000 acres of my ranch as theirs. They wanted to convert it into HOA recreational zones, pathways, and estate expansions. I felt sick. I called Russell in a panic. "They're taking everything," I said. "We need to file for an emergency injunction," he replied, his voice steady, but I could hear the concern. "But even that might take weeks. They're betting you'll get tired and give up." Give up? That wasn't in my blood. My granddad didn't survive the Dust Bowl just so I could roll over for a bunch of fancy rollmakers. Still, I felt like I was being swallowed up. For the next few days, I did everything I could. I brought in local news crews, gave interviews, showed them the animals displaced, the trees being bulldozed, and the old barn that had been on the cover of a ranching magazine now turned into a pile of wood chips. Social media picked it up. People were furious. Hashtags like Save Coyote Hills and Hands Off the Ranch started trending. But Silver Glen HOA didn't back down. They doubled down. On a Wednesday morning, I heard loud engines outside. I ran out, my heart racing. A convoy of construction trucks was driving right through my ranch: cement mixers, gravel trucks, earth movers, all heading toward the center pasture. I jumped into my old red Ford and raced after them. That's when I saw it. They'd already broken ground. Concrete footers, rebar cages, survey flags, and a massive sign. Future site of Silver Glen Community Center and luxury tennis courts. I slammed the brakes and jumped out of the truck. "Stop! You can't do this," I screamed. But they didn't stop. One of the men shouted over the noise of a jackhammer, "This land belongs to the HOA now." I was shaking not with fear, but with rage. I reached for my phone and dialed Russell. He picked up immediately. "Dan, they just broke ground," I said, my voice cracking. "They're building a tennis court right where my dad used to raise horses." There was silence on the other end of the line, and then Russell said, "Then it's time we go to war." And right then, something exploded near the north field. Not a bomb, but a whole waterline burst. Mud sprayed 20 feet into the air. The workers started shouting. I looked toward the ridge and saw a group of angry neighbors' pitchforks, banners, and video cameras. They had come, but what they did next shocked even me. They didn't just stand there. They charged. About 30 people, ranchers, neighbors, veterans, even a few teenagers from the local FFA club, stormed down the ridge and into the open field. They weren't armed, but they didn't need to be. They had phones, signs, and enough fire in their voices to rattle every single construction worker on site. "This is Daniel's ranch," one woman screamed. "You stole our land," another shouted. The workers panicked. Some dropped their tools and backed off. Others jumped into their vehicles and sped away, tires kicking up thick clouds of dust as they peeled off into the hills. I just stood there, frozen, watching my neighbors reclaim my land like it was Normandy Beach. One guy climbed the freshly mounted HOA sign and yanked it clean out of the dirt. He held it above his head like a trophy. Someone shoved a microphone in my face, one of the reporters who had gotten wind of the chaos. "Mr. Cross, is it true the HOA is building a community center on your land without permission?" I nodded slowly, still dazed. "Not just a community center. Tennis courts, sidewalks, gated roads. They're paving over my family's history." Before I could say more, the man in the suit from earlier, the one who told me I was trespassing, returned, with a group of security guards. His face was red with fury. "Everyone needs to clear this area immediately. This is HOA property," he barked. Hank, an older man with a long beard, stepped forward and said loudly, "We don't take orders from HOA thieves." The security guard stepped in front of him, and for a tense second, I thought it was going to turn violent. But then the sheriff showed up. Sheriff Mara Beeksley was a no-nonsense woman who wore her badge like it was carved from iron. She pulled up in her patrol truck, got out slowly, and walked right up to the scene like she was walking into a saloon shootout. "Someone want to explain why I've got 10 calls about a riot on Coyote Hills?" she asked, her eyes hidden behind her sunglasses. I opened my mouth, but the HOA man beat me to it. "Sheriff, this man is trespassing on HOA land. He rallied a mob, and he's interfering with legally permitted construction." Mara raised one eyebrow. "Last I checked, this land was part of Daniel Cross's family ranch," she said, glancing at the county documents the HOA guy was quoting. She cut him off with a hand wave. "Don't quote papers at me unless you want me to start quoting the law at you." She turned to me. "You got your papers, Daniel?" I nodded and handed her my folder copies of the deed, tax records, even satellite images with timestamps. She flipped through them for about 30 seconds, then closed the folder slowly. She turned to the HOA man. "Until I get a court order saying otherwise, you and your crew are trespassing. Pack up now." His mouth hung open. "You don't have the authority," he said. Mara stepped forward. "You want to test that, son?" The security guards quickly backed off. The HOA rep cursed under his breath and signaled his team to pull out. As they did, the crowd cheered like we'd just won a championship game. But it didn't last long. That afternoon, I got served with a restraining order filed by Silver Glen Estates' HOA. They claimed I had incited a riot, threatened community safety, and illegally impeded authorized construction. My jaw dropped. They had invaded my land. And now, I was the criminal. Russell came over, holding a folder, his face full of frustration. "They're flipping the script, Dan," he said. "They're building a case that you're the problem, not them." "Can they really do that?" I asked. "They're hoping the court sees it that way before you get a chance to present the full truth," Russell replied. "Their lawyers are playing dirty. This is going to be a war of paperwork now." And he wasn't kidding. Every day, I got more letters, threats, notices, HOA fines, court dates, zoning violations. According to them, I had parked unauthorized vehicles, my tractors kept non-approved livestock, and my goats violated architectural standards. My barn was the wrong shape. Russell fought back hard. He filed motions, injunctions, appeals, but the HOA had deep pockets and powerful friends. Then, a week later, the court granted them a temporary injunction. They could keep building while the legal battle continued. I couldn't believe it. One morning, I walked outside and saw cement trucks again. They were pouring the foundation for the tennis courts. I just stood there, helpless. The same land where my daughter took her first steps, where my dad taught me to ride, was being turned into a concrete slab with HOA logos painted on it. That night, I sat on the porch with my boots off, rocking slowly in the chair my granddad built. I was losing the war. Then, I got the call. It was a woman's voice, rough, no nonsense. "You don't know me, Mr. Cross," she said, "but I saw you on the news. I used to work for the land surveyor that helped Silver Glen get that annexation passed." I sat up straight. "Yeah, I have something you'll want to see." My hands tightened around the phone. "What is it?" she whispered. "Proof that they lied. That annexation is fake." I almost dropped the phone. "Are you serious?" But she didn't answer. She hung up. The next morning, an unmarked manila envelope showed up at my front gate. Inside was maps, emails, contracts, and one letter typed, anonymous. It said, "Silver Glen HOA forged the land annexation paperwork. They used expired survey data, and the county clerk who signed it has family on the HOA board." I didn't burn it. I ran straight to Russell. He flipped through the papers, his face growing paler with each page. "This is explosive," he said. "Can we use it in court?" He seemed unsure, but we both knew what it meant. If this was real, it meant their entire claim was built on fraud. And that's when we decided, we didn't just fight this in court anymore. We'd go public. Big. We gave it all to the press. 1 week later, a 60-minute special aired. Farmland under fire. How an HOA tried to steal a Texas ranch. People were shocked. Calls poured in. Donations, legal support, even retired attorneys from Austin offered to help. But Silver Glen HOA didn't stop. 2 nights later, I saw 2 men sneaking around my tractor shed. I fired a warning shot in the air, and they vanished into the night. I called Mara again. She promised patrols. The next morning, I found my cattle fence cut again. Ranger followed the scent, barking furiously. He led me to a pile of something buried in the soil. A bag. Inside, a stack of forged land titles, copies of my signature. They were planning something big. I raced home, heart pounding. I called Russell. "They're going to present fake deeds in court," I said. Russell didn't pause. Then we better beat them to it. And the morning of the trial, something happened I didn't expect. A whistleblower from Ridgeview Ventures walked into the courthouse with a hard drive full of internal emails. What was on it was about to change everything. Inside the courtroom, the air was electric. People packed every seat. News cameras rolled quietly in the back. I sat at the plaintiff's table, beside Russell, who was flipping through our stack of evidence. Across the aisle sat a team of 5 lawyers, all in $1,000 suits. Behind them, Veronica Lambert, trying to look composed, but her twitching fingers gave her away. Then came the moment that turned everything. Judge Harris, a sharp woman with piercing gray eyes, took the bench. I've reviewed the submitted documents regarding the annexation and land dispute between Daniel Cross and Silver Glen HOA, now under Ridgeview Ventures. Before we proceed, I've been made aware of new evidence. All eyes turned as the doors opened at the back of the courtroom. In walked a young man in a wrinkled blue shirt, carrying a small silver hard drive. "This is Jeremy Kane," Russell said, standing. "Former IT contractor for Ridgeview Ventures. He has sworn testimony and digital records that reveal direct evidence of forged documents, fraudulent annexation filings, bribery of public officials, and internal communications confirming knowledge of the false land claims." Gasps echoed through the room. Judge Harris motioned him forward. "Mr. Kane, please approach and submit the device for review." Jeremy handed the drive to the court clerk. "Everything you need is in there," he said. Emails, signatures they copied, even internal chats where they joked about tricking the hick with the hat. I didn't flinch. I just looked straight at Veronica. She didn't meet my eyes for the rest of the trial. For the next 2 hours, Russell walked the court through the hard drive's contents. It was all stamped evidence showing how Ridgeview had acquired the HOA, paid for the surveyor's silence, and manipulated zoning records. Even blueprints for a luxury resort with the title Coyote Hills Redevelopment Master Plan were on the drive. The defense tried to object. "Your Honor, this was obtained illegally." Judge Harris shut them down. "It was provided voluntarily by a whistleblower. It's admissible." Then, Russell dropped the hammer. He projected a digital document on the screen and email chain with the subject line covering our tracks. One email read, "Once the barn is gone, he'll fold. Hit him with fines, eviction next. Just drag it out till he's broke or gone." The courtroom went dead silent. Judge Harris leaned forward. "Is this how Ridgeview Ventures does business?" Their lead attorney fumbled for words. Veronica stood up, hands shaking. "I had no idea about those emails." Judge Harris cut her off. "Sit down." In the final moments of the hearing, Russell brought out the original deed, saved by Jeanette from the county office. He read aloud. "Filed and recorded July 2nd, 1911. Owner, Jonathan Cross. Boundaries, 2,800 acres west and north of Willow Creek. Known as Coyote Hills." He looked up. This land was never unclaimed. It was never annexed. It was never part of Silver Glen. The entire basis of the HOA and Ridgeview's claim is a lie. Judge Harris took a deep breath. "This court finds that Daniel Cross is the rightful and legal owner of the 2,000-acre property known as Coyote Hills. All annexation claims are nullified. All Ridgeview Ventures development is hereby ordered to cease immediately. Criminal charges,